So one of the first things I wanted to discuss today was, of course, protecting yourself and protecting your files from any of the failures or potential failures that might happen in the future. And as we witnessed this morning, sometimes files can go corrupt, or they can go missing, or they can open the wrong way. And so what you would like to have is some sort of systematic approach or strategy to making sure that you have the right way of handling your files through the available services that you can access. So there are two things, well, there's three things in total that we can do. We can think about, obviously, the systems within Maya itself and what it can let us do. We can think about any of the physical systems that we might have, such as backup hard drives, and of course we can move on later to thinking about things like cloud services. So the first thing I want to talk about is sequential saving, which is nice and easy here. So I'll just highlight this quickly. So sequential saving is nice and easy and something that's available in Maya straight away to use. And as we took a look at this morning, so we have a file here, which is the one that we're going to use later on, of course, as well. And the one that was used in the demo this morning. So nothing fancy here, but I just want to draw your attention to, if I go over to File at the top here, we have a series of options available to us, but the important ones are, of course, Save Scene As, and Increment and Save. So the Increment and Save option is definitely the one that we're interested in, or the shortcut, which is Control-Alt-S. So if I click Increment and Save, and then click Continue, essentially we can see down here that the file has now saved as cameratask.001.10bmb, which means that it has now saved a new version of the file instead of saving over the original. And the good thing is if I continue to press Control-Alt-S, it will continue to build on that task, and we can see those results down here at the bottom, which is excellent. So if I was to open up that folder, essentially what I'm going to see is a list of files instead of the intended. Let me see, I'll just pull that up just so we can see that, of course. Teaching, just 2 seconds to browse to that. 3D digital design, and of course classes, and that is of course week 12. I'll just pop this over here. We can see inside here we have a camera task 1, 2, and of course our original file. So the sequential saving system is an excellent way of saving new versions of the work that you're doing as you go along, instead of overwriting the old one. And essentially the role there is, of course, to build a library of files as you progress forward, which is going to be useful for you to stop you kind of making a mistake that cannot be corrected if the file gets corrupt, so that you have a healthy amount of backup. So if you move back a couple of versions, you might find a healthy version of the file and can continue working forward without having lost too much data or information. So that's really, really useful, and something that you might want to use as you start to move forward to building your final scenes with cameras and actors and all sorts of cool things happening in there. So definitely something worth considering. Let me see. Okay, next on our list is, of course, auto-saving. Auto-saving is another handy way that Maya lets us customize our backup systems, which can be really useful. Some people don't like auto-saving because they don't like the automatic process of stuff being saved without their permission, but there is actually a couple of checks that Maya performs that actually make this a little bit more customizable and usable. So I'm going to head over to up here to Windows. I'm going to move down to oh sorry, whoops, I lost my monitor there. So I'm going to go to Settings, Preferences, and of course to Preferences. And like many things in Maya, it's a complex looking window, but what we're looking for is Files and Projects. And inside Files and Projects, we can see that there are a bunch of cool things that you can do to customize your Maya's setup. One thing I do recommend playing with is, of course, your default projects directory. So whenever you make a new project, or even if you start a new project root, that automatically starts in an area that you find more useful. Sometimes the default document setup isn't ideal for people. Anyway, so the important part here is, of course, the autosave feature, which has, as we can see here, we can enable it, and then we have other options that become available. So we can go prompt before save. So instead of automatically saving, it will attempt to automatically save, but it will ask us if we wish to save at that point in time. Some people find that can interrupt their workflow. You can limit your autosaves as well. So you might go, I want to reach a limit of 10 autosaves. But again, remember, once you've gone to 10 autosaves, then it will stop autosaving. So sometimes it's best to leave that disabled. And of course your interval. So how many minutes do you want things to be saved at, of course. And that's really, really important. So interval in between that. And of course you got your autosave destination. By default, this is set to the project folder, which isn't ideal for everyone. So wherever your project's set up, it will save that to the scenes folder. Or, which is probably much more usable, is a named folder. So actually picking a directory, where you want that to happen. And that's really, really important for a lot of you. So of course there's a bunch of other things in here which you can probably safely ignore, but essentially that autosave feature is there and you might want to use it in future. It can save a lot of problems and that's useful, I believe. Worth talking about, of course, as well, are other strategies to all of this. Heading back to my backup hard drive. So you may have a hard drive in your laptop. That might be the only hard drive there. Of course, if that hard drive goes down, then you lose access to your work. So it's important to think about how often you do a backup and where you're backing up to. You know, is that something like a USB pen or is there a second hard drive somewhere, like an external drive, which are really useful. But again, these things are prone to accident or prone to loss. If you lose your backup hard drives as well, then you lose everything, which leads me neatly on to the final one, and the one I can't recommend enough because it works with all of this very well, especially if you tie all three systems up. So cloud services, and we think about that as sort of online services such as Google Drive, Dropbox, or even your Microsoft OneDrive, and there are others as well, of course, that allow you to make folders on your computer that are permanently on the cloud or online. So when you save anything to that folder, it automatically updates to the server. I use these services a lot because I've lost a lot of work in the past, and these are very, very handy. But of course, that depends on your internet connection. So cloud services are a good way to have a very feel-safe way of saving. I actually pay for a Dropbox account because I need lots of space, but I think the university provides you with OneDrive accounts with lots of space, and Google Drive are very generous. I think you're allowed 17 gigabytes with your Google Drive account. And remember, if you've installed those plugins in your computer, such as Dropbox, OneDrive, or Google Drive, then they will automatically sync with the server. So that can get pretty insane. But eventually what you really want to look forward to is a stress-free, worry-free workflow. And these things are absolutely essential. So try to think about how you do that, especially in the next few weeks whenever stress and anxiety starts to set in about the coursework deadlines. You're more prone to making mistakes or losing work, and of course that's sort of the sort of stress that you do not need. And it's totally avoidable. So please have a think about your strategy in terms of how you save your work, what you're doing to make sure that that work is backed up, or what automatic services you can use to make sure you never lose work again. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll stop talking now and move on to the next section. Thank you very much for listening.